A diving bell breaks the surface of the North Sea. It's a steel chamber, about the size of a small phone booth, used to transport commercial divers to the seabed. When the bell comes back up, the door on the bottom is supposed to be sealed shut. This one comes up with the door hanging open. Two divers had been working from it, one inside, one outside. When the crew reaches the chamber, they find one diver dead inside. The other one is gone. This day changed saturation diving. The rules were never the same. This is the story of how a diving bell launched itself from the seabed and what happened to the two men working from it. Per Christian Skipnes was 37, one of the more experienced commercial divers in the North Sea. His partner on the morning of January 16, 1974, was Robert John Smyth. Both worked for Ocean Systems International, the American contractor running the dives. The rig was the drill master, leased by Esso to drill the Odin field off the Norwegian coast. The job was routine: lower a two-man bell to the seabed and inspect the underwater structures. At 320 feet, a correct decompression takes hours. A wrong one takes seconds. The reason is the breathing gas. At that depth, the pressure on the human body is about 10 atmospheres, 10 times what a person at sea level is feeling right now. At that pressure, the gases a diver breathes for North Sea work, a mix of helium and oxygen, dissolve into the blood and soak into every part of the body. That's saturation diving. A saturated diver can stay at depth for days, but they can't come back up quickly. If the pressure drops faster than the gas can be breathed back out, the gas forms bubbles in the blood, joints and brain. Bubbles in those places block circulation, tear tissue, and kill the diver in seconds. The plan was correct: lower the bell. Skipnes goes outside, Smyth stays inside, paying out Skipnes's umbilical. Seal up, decompress on schedule, come home. That plan was already wrong weeks earlier when someone made a small change to the bell's ballast system and forgot to update the instructions. That change affected the system that held the bell to the seabed, and that system was about to let it go. A diving bell has a single hatch in the floor. The hatch stays open during the dive. At depth, the gas pressure inside the bell matches the water pressure outside, so the water doesn't rush up. It just sits at the hatch, a flat black surface in the floor of the bell that the divers can step through. Beneath the bell, bolted to the frame, are the drop weights. Two functions. One, they hold the bell down. A bell full of gas wants to float. The weights kill that buoyancy and pin the chamber to the seabed. Two, emergency recovery. If something goes wrong, the surface crew releases the weights and the bell rises on its own. That second function is the one that mattered on January 16th, because if those weights come off when they aren't supposed to, the bell doesn't drift up, it launches. From 320 feet with the bottom hatch open, a saturated diver tethered outside on an umbilical, that geometry kills both divers. The diver inside decompresses too fast. The gas in his body forms bubbles in his blood. The diver outside gets pulled up by his umbilical at the same speed, through the same pressure change, and the same thing happens to him. That was the geometry the drill master's bell was sitting in. The bell's on the seabed. Skipnes is outside working. Smyth is inside, seated near the hatch. Breathing gas is coming down through the bell's umbilical, hundreds of feet of hose from the rig. On the rig, a small team's running the dive. A dive supervisor watching the gas readings and depth. A bell tender on the umbilical winch. The rest of the crew standing by. The drop weights are still attached. The hatch is open and the radio's clear. Skipnes's voice over the line is distorted by the helium in his breathing gas. High-pitched, almost cartoonish, the way every commercial diver sounds on the radio. Everything is normal. Inside the ballast system, a valve has been in the wrong position the entire time. This isn't a part that fails dramatically. No bang, no warning, no light on a console. The brake holding the drop weights releases them. They fall off the bottom of the bell. The bell loses several thousand pounds of downward force. The physics holding it on the seabed give way to the physics pulling it up. It doesn't rise. It accelerates upward through 320 feet of water with its hatch hanging open. The pressure drops with Smyth inside, killing him instantly. On the rig, the surface crew sees the Bell's umbilical paying out faster than the winch should be releasing it. The depth reading drops, the supervisor calls into the comm line, and nothing comes back. Skipnes is outside the Bell when it launches. His umbilical is bolted to the Bell at one end, attached to him at the other. In an emergency, a diver can disconnect his umbilical from his suit and let the Bell go. The Bell doesn't give Skipnes that time. He's dragged off the seabed. Behind the Bell, his umbilical pulls him through 320 feet of dark, near freezing water, faster than any human body can survive. The same thing is happening inside his body. The chamber breaks the surface. Inside, Smyth has been dead for most of the ascent. The rest of the minute was just the Bell rising with a body in it. Outside, Skipnes' umbilical is empty. Somewhere in those 320 feet of water, his body is separated from the line. A search begins immediately. They never find him. He's officially lost at sea. What killed these men happened weeks before the dive. Crews searched the water around the rig. The North Sea in January has temperatures near freezing, swells that carry a body faster than a boat can follow, and visibility from the surface that drops to zero as the light fades. The rig sat far offshore. 3 years earlier, in March 1971, Skipnes had been inside another diving Bell, on another North Sea rig, the Ocean Viking, when that Bell sank with him in it. He was rescued. He stopped diving for a while, then went back to the job. He knew better than almost anyone in those waters what could go wrong in a diving Bell. January 16th had been a routine inspection in calm conditions, with a Bell that had passed every check before it left the surface. And something released the weights underneath him. The Norwegian authorities opened an investigation. They wanted to know what had failed. What they found was paperwork. Sometime before January 1974, the system that released the drop weights had been modified. The written operating procedure, what the surface crew followed every dive, hadn't been updated to match. According to the procedure, one valve should be closed during a dive. After the modification, it should have been open. The operators followed the procedure and closed the valve. With it closed, the brake holding the drop weights couldn't do its job. The weights released. 2 men died because a piece of paper hadn't been rewritten after a piece of equipment was changed. And in 1974, in Norway, that was legal. Between 1971 and 1975, at least 31 commercial divers died in the North Sea, Skipnes and Smyth among them. Norway had set up the Petroleum Directorate in 1972 to regulate drilling permits. Diving safety fell outside its scope. The men who built the Bell, the men who modified it, and the men who followed the procedures were operating in a regulatory space that had no flaw. By the end of the decade, the drill master had become one of the 1970s North Sea fatalities that pushed Norway toward writing the rules. By 1978, the Petroleum Directorate had established formal certification for diving contractors. Mandatory Bell diving certificates followed. More than 1,340 were issued by the end of 1980. And documenting equipment changes became part of the job. The rules Skipnes and Smyth had been working without. A procedure that no longer matched the equipment killed them. After the drill master, that wasn't allowed to happen anymore. The drill master is a story about a sentence in a manual that was never corrected. Per Skipnes had survived this kind of dive once before. He went back to work anyway. 3 years later, a document nobody had remembered to update released the weights under his Bell, and the Bell dragged him through 320 feet of black water on the end of his own umbilical. On the Vaga drill 2, a supervisor's mistake turned a pressurized chamber into an oven, cooking 2 divers alive at 390 feet. That story's on screen now. If you enjoyed the video, please like. It really helps the channel, and we appreciate it. And subscribe for more Below the Blue. See you in the deep.